If you make $75,000 a year, there is a very good chance you are driving more car than your salary should be carrying. Not because you are careless with money. Because most people are using the wrong test when they decide what car to buy. They look at the monthly payment, decide it feels manageable, and call it done. But the payment is only one piece of what a car actually costs you. Once you add everything together and measure it honestly against your salary, the number looks very different. And for most buyers, that difference is not small. My name is Goodnews, and I spend most of my time analyzing financial data, studying money, investing, side hustles, and the habits that help ordinary people build extraordinary financial lives. Nobody walks into a dealership feeling reckless. Most people have done some thinking. They have a number in their head that feels like the ceiling. They have decided what they are willing to spend every month. And that monthly number feels responsible. It feels like a grown-up way to approach a big purchase. The problem is that the monthly payment was never designed to tell you the full story. It was designed to make a large purchase feel small enough to say yes to. Think about what a car actually costs you to own. There is the payment if you are financing. There is insurance, which has been quietly climbing for most buyers over the last couple of years. There is fuel, which comes out of your pocket every single week. There is maintenance. Oil changes, tires, the random repair that shows up when you least expect it. There is registration. And sitting underneath all of it, there is depreciation. The slow loss of value that you never write a check for, but that still costs you real money over time. When you add all of that together and compare it honestly to your annual income, most buyers are shocked by where they land. The average car buyer effectively puts around 22% of their annual income into the full cost of owning their vehicle. Not just the payment. The whole thing. And 22% of your income going to a depreciating asset is not just a transportation decision. It is a wealth decision. A quietly expensive one that most people make without ever running the real number. So if you have ever typed "how much car can I afford" into a search bar, this video is the honest answer. Not what payment you can survive. Not what the financing office says you qualify for. What your salary can actually carry without the car eating the rest of your financial life. The reason this catches so many people is not greed, and it is not stupidity. It is the way the payment frame works on your brain. When a dealership conversation centers around one monthly number, your mind compares that number to other things you already pay. And a $600 or $700 monthly payment starts to feel like rent, a gym membership, or other costs you have already accepted as normal. The problem is that you are not buying a $600 month. You are buying a car that costs $12,000 or $14,000 a year once everything is properly added up. Brian Preston and Bo Hansen at the Money Guy Show have built a lot of their practical financial guidance around one honest truth. Big recurring expenses quietly shape your financial future more than almost anything else you do with money. And the car is where that principle breaks down for a lot of people, because it carries a social weight that most other purchases do not. A car is visible. It says something about where you are in life. That emotional layer makes it very easy to justify a number the math would otherwise reject. This is not about shame. Plenty of thoughtful, financially aware people are driving too much car right now. They are not bad with money. They just used the wrong test at one important moment. The stronger test is total cost measured against salary. And there is a rule for that. When your car takes too much of your income, you do not feel it as one dramatic crisis. You feel it as a slow narrowing of options. Saving feels harder than it should. Investing keeps getting pushed to next month. A raise arrives and disappears before you even notice where it went. The emergency fund barely moves. The breathing room never quite shows up, even though your income keeps growing. Paula Pant talks about this in terms of trade-offs, and it is exactly the right way to think about it. Every dollar or pound locked inside a car is money that cannot build anything else. That does not mean you should drive something unreliable or never enjoy what you drive. It means being honest about what that enjoyment costs you across the full year, because that is the number that decides how much room you have left for everything else. Greg McBride has made a similar point in consumer finance commentary over the years. When fixed costs stay oversized for long periods, They create a kind of financial ceiling people keep bumping into without understanding why. A car at the wrong price point becomes one of those ceilings very easily. Once you sign it in, it stays in your life for years. And that makes the decision far more important than it feels in the moment. So here's the rule you should be running before any car decision. Take your gross annual income and multiply it by 8%. That number is the maximum total annual cost of car ownership that keeps the car in its proper lane. Not the maximum payment. The maximum total cost, payment, insurance, fuel, maintenance, and registration, all of it combined. This is the 8% car rule. And it is much more useful than the standard advice about keeping your payment under a certain percentage of take-home pay. A payment rule only tells you what you can survive month to month. The 8% total cost rule tells you what your salary can actually carry without the car stealing space that should be going toward your future. And yes, it will feel stricter than what most people are used to hearing. That is because it is more honest than most advice on this topic. If this rule already changed how you think about buying a car, subscribe now, because every week I break down one financial decision that looks normal until the math tells the truth. Now let us run this rule across 4 salary levels so you can see exactly what it means in real life. At $40,000 a year, 8% gives you $3,200 annually, which is about $267 a month for total car cost. That is a tight number and it needs to cover everything. At this income level, the right move is almost always an older used compact with lower insurance, low fuel cost, and a very careful total cost mindset. The goal is to keep the whole bundle inside that ceiling, not just find a payment that fits. At $75,000 a year, 8% gives you $6,000 annually, which is about $500 a month total. This is the income tier where the most mistakes happen, because $75,000 feels like a comfortable salary, and the market is full of cars priced to feel appropriate for someone earning that much. But a $500 total budget means the car payment itself has to be considerably lower than $500 once insurance, fuel, and maintenance are counted. Many buyers at $75,000 are running at $900 to $1,100 a month total without realizing it, which puts them closer to 15 or 17% of income rather than 8%. That gap is the wealth leak. At $120,000 a year, 8% gives you $9,600 annually, which is about $800 a month total. There is more room here, but this is also where the status conversation gets louder. A lot of buyers at this income level feel they have earned the right to a nicer badge or a more premium SUV. Sometimes the math still supports it. Often it does not, once insurance and depreciation are properly counted. At $200,000 a year, 8% gives you $16,000 annually, which is about $1,333 a month total. The budget is meaningful here and some genuinely premium choices become realistic. But the principle still holds. The salary-to-car ratio matters at every income level, because the trap of buying too much car does not disappear just because the income is high. So here is what that looks like with real numbers. Say someone at $75,000 is looking at a car with a $620 monthly payment. Sounds manageable. Now add $190 for insurance. Add $170 for fuel. Add $80 for maintenance and registration averaged out. That total comes to around $1,060 a month. Over a full year, that is $12,720. On a $75,000 income, that is almost 17% of gross annual earnings going to one depreciating asset. More than double the 8% rule. Now run the same exercise at $120,000. 8% gives you $9,600 a year, which is $800 a month total. If insurance runs $220, fuel runs $180, and maintenance averages $70, that leaves around $330 a month for an actual payment. That is a very different car than what many $120,000 earners are driving. But it is the car the math supports without putting the rest of life under pressure. This is why the car budget you should actually use starts with your annual income, not a monthly payment comfort zone. The math does not change because the showroom felt exciting, or because the finance manager called the payment surprisingly reasonable. And this works the same way whether you are dealing in US dollars, UK pounds, Australian dollars, or Canadian dollars. The income thresholds will look different in your currency and your market. But the logic is the same everywhere. Total annual cost divided by gross annual income. Keep it under 8%. The first step is to calculate your real annual car cost right now. Add up what you are actually paying across the full year for payment, insurance, fuel, maintenance, and registration. Most people have never done this. The number usually surprises them. The second step is to divide that total by your gross annual income and see what percentage you get. If it is above 8%, that is useful information. It does not mean the car has to go today. It means you now have a clear picture of the actual cost, which is the only honest starting point for any decision about what comes next. The third step is to make a rule for yourself going forward. Before you look at any car, run the 8% number for your salary first. Know your ceiling before you walk in. Because once you are standing in front of a car you like, the payment conversation will do everything it can to make the number feel manageable. The rule protects you before that conversation even starts. The goal here is not to make car ownership miserable or to tell you that you should only ever drive something cheap and boring. It is to give you a test that is honest enough to protect you from a decision that can quietly drag on your financial life for years, without ever feeling like one big mistake. David Bach spent years writing about how automatic wealth building collapses when recurring costs take up too much space. A car that sits above your real affordability ceiling is exactly that kind of cost. It does not announce itself. It just keeps showing up, month after month, in the space that should be going somewhere better. So next time you are asking how much car should I buy, start with the 8% rule. Start with your salary. Start with the full number. Find the car that fits that number, rather than finding a payment that makes a car feel like it fits when it does not. That one shift changes more than just your car choice. It changes what you are able to do with everything else. Welcome to Good News Invest, where money starts making sense. Before you go, tell me in the comments what car you drive and what percentage of your income you think it is really costing you. Now you know how much car your salary can actually support, but the car is only one of 4 lifestyle upgrades quietly destroying most households. There are 3 others that hit even harder than the car, and they hit at very specific income levels. You will want to know the exact income threshold where each one becomes dangerous. Click the playlist on your screen to access it, and I will see you on the next one.